And this is the continuation of December Part 4. You still have 3 questions. Number 4, what did she pull out? What did Holling get? And what did President Johnson declare? After everyone left, Mrs. Baker went to her desk and opened her lower desk drawer. She took out 3, no, not books of Shakespeare like you might think. She pulled out 3 brand new baseballs. So that's question 4. Their covers were white as snow, their threads tight and ready for fingers to grip into a curve. And then she reached in again and took out 3 mitts. Their leathery smell filled the room. She handed them to us. The leather was soft and supple. We slipped our hands in and pushed the new baseballs into their deep pockets. My brother-in-law, whom I believe Mr. Hupfer and Mr. Hoodhood both saw the other night following the extravaganza, has asked me to give you these as holiday gifts, compliments of the Baker's Sporting Emporium store, said Mrs. Baker. And after telling me what happened during your time there, he and I made some arrangements for you to break the mitts in. So, take them down to the gymnasium and don't throw balls in the hall. And dropping one's jaw in surprise only happens in cartoons and bad plays, gentlemen. Danny grinned as we went out. The gym is empty last period. She's giving us the afternoon off. But he was wrong about that too. The gym wasn't empty because Joe Pepitone and Horace Clark were waiting for us in the bleachers in their Yankee uniforms, number 25 and number 20. The 2 greatest players to put on Yankee pinstripes since Babe Ruth, Joe Pepitone and Horace Clark. Can you believe it? Which one of you is Holling? Said Horace Clark. I pointed to my chest. And Doug? Doug Switek slowly raised his hand. So you're Danny, said Joe Pepitone. Danny nodded. Horace Clark held up his mitt. Let's see your arm, Holling, he said. And I threw my baseball to Horace Clark. Danny and Doug threw with Joe Pepitone, then we switched, and Danny threw with Horace Clark, and Doug and I threw with Joe Pepitone. Then we went outside, and under a warm sun, and on a diamond that hadn't been used since October, Horace Clark crouched behind the plate, and I threw fastballs to him, and even once a knuckleball. Really. And then Danny got up, and Horace Clark pitched, and Joe Pepitone and I shagged balls in the outfield. And then Joe Pepitone got up, and Doug and I shagged balls in the outfield. And then we took some infield practice from Horace Clark. And then we stood around the diamond, Joe Pepitone at home, Danny at first, Horace Clark at second, Doug at deep shortstop, me at third, and we whipped the ball to each other around and around and around as fast as we could, while Horace Clark chanted, "Out of there! Out of there!" And the balls struck soft and deep in the pockets of the gloves, and the smack of them and the smell of the gloves filled the bright yellow air, while the breeze drew us across the whole time as soft as feathers. Afterward, they signed our baseballs and signed our mitts. They gave us each 2 tickets for opening day next April, and they gave Doug and Danny their caps. And for me, well, Joe Pepitone gave me his Yankees jacket. So that's number 5. Can you believe it? His jacket. When they drove off, it felt like a place inside me had filled again. Our revels were not ended. Danny and Doug and I ran up to the 3rd floor to find Mrs. Baker. Mr. Vendlary was already taking down the Christmas and Hanukkah decorations. The halls were ghostly dark and the classrooms' doors were shut with the lights out behind them. Mrs. Baker was gone, but she had left a note on the door. Mr. Hoodhood, it said, read The Tragedy of Macbeth for the first Wednesday of January. Too bad, said Danny. But Doug went on into class, and he came back out, carrying the cardboard box for number 166 from the coat room. He looked at us, shrugged, and hauled it away down the hall, staggering under its clumsy weight. We never saw it again. The next day, President Johnson declared a Christmas ceasefire in Vietnam. So that's number 6. And the bombs stopped dropping, and so the happy holidays finally began. And that is the end of the chapter called December.